All right, today we're going to try to take some notes on the structures of the heart. Ultimately, it's going to be pretty complicated with lots of colors. It should hopefully look something like this. Now, if you're like me, you don't have a printer at home, so there's a couple things I recommend. Number one, you can take a blank piece of paper, hold it up against the file, and trace the outline. It's a little bit tedious, but there's not that many lines. And then you will have a picture of the heart on one side and you can fill in your notes on the other. Of course, if you do have a printer, the best case scenario would be to print out this file. The worst case scenario would be you don't want to trace, so you download the picture, you type in the notes, and I don't know how you're going to get to color this. If you have an app where you are able to color on the computer, that's perfect. I don't know how to do that, so I'm going to color it by hand. So, step one is get a picture of the heart on a piece of paper. However you do that, great. Now that you have your blank picture of the heart on a piece of paper, what you're gonna want is 4 different colors. So I have my fancy 4-color pen here, and then I found 4 colored pencils that match those colors. You can use any coloring device you like, whether it's highlighters or markers or crayons, whatever you have around. Hopefully you have 4 different colors because that will help us learn the structures better. I'm going to be going step by step in these. You will most likely have to pause while you write or rewind if you missed something. And we are going to call these notes Structures of the Heart. Structures of the heart. I'm gonna make a line not too close to this because I want a little bit of labeling room. I'm gonna just make a line like that so I kind of know where my notes are. And we're gonna make a note first. Before we get into the actual structures, we wanna make sure we know one big idea in anatomy. So up top here, go ahead and star in anatomy. Right and left are backwards. Because you are describing organs inside someone you are looking at. So if you're looking at another person, your right side is actually their left hand. So this is left, and what you see on the left is actually their right hand. So this over here is right. So here we go. I'm going to come back over here and begin with letter A. The heart is made of cardiac muscle. We learned that when we looked at the types of muscle. Remember, there are smooth muscle, cardiac muscle, and skeletal muscle. Cardiac muscle is only found in the heart. It is striated and branched and has many nuclei in each cell. Now there are 2 loops to the heart. The right loop, or the right side, pumps blood to the lungs. Through the pulmonary loop. Pulmonary means lung. Pulmón in Spanish is lung. If you speak Spanish, that helps. And the left side, number 2, pumps blood to the rest of the body. In the systemic loop. Systemic meaning the whole system. So when we look at our picture of the heart, there's a lot going on, but if you can imagine a line down the middle, it's a little bit of a crooked line, it's tilted at an axis, but here on the right side, this will end up going sideways to the lungs on either side, and the left side goes up and down. Here I'm going to color code the cardiac muscle. So inside here, you can write cardiac muscle and find a blue or color that matches, and you're going to shade this in. The walls of the heart are quite thick. When we do the dissection, you'll get to see how thick they are. One side is thicker than the other. And it sort of comes up and around here. Don't color these flaps. Those are valves. We'll get there later. So just kind of come down there and color it. Then come up the middle. The middle is called the septum. And this is where it starts to get into a blood vessel, so just kind of loop it around here, up and over. Again, down just maybe there, up and over. And finish off the right side of the heart. That is all the cardiac muscle of the heart. Obviously, this is the inside view, so it's, curved, if you can tell it's coming up and over. But when you cut into it, you see that there are these holes or chambers of the heart, which we will talk about in a minute. Moving along to the blood vessels. You already learned about arteries, veins, and capillaries, and those are some of what are coming into the heart here. So we're going to talk about the blood vessels next. I'm going to switch over to green. You can switch over to whatever color you like. B. There are 4 major blood vessels connecting the heart to the body. Number 1, veins go toward the heart. Now you might wonder, why did I sound Swedish or Norwegian there? Well, it helps me remember V for veins, and if you look at a W, it actually looks like 2 V's stuck together. So if you say veins go toward, you might remember that it's V's for toward, and then you sound Norwegian. So we've got 2 types of veins. Letter A, the vena cava. Again, this is Latin. The vena cava brings blood from the body, and we're going to color it in here. On our drawing, we have one big blood vessel at the top. Draw an arrow coming in. This is our vena cava. But that would just come from the head and the arms. We also have a blood vessel coming up from the legs and the torso, and this is also the vena cava, but it comes behind the heart and sort of pops in about right here. So this will pop up into that space there. Next, letter B, we have the pulmonary vein. The pulmonary vein brings blood from the lungs, because again, pulmonary means lungs. Now, in our picture, the lungs we know are to the right and the left of the heart. So these blood vessels right here actually have blood coming in, and the ones on the left side have blood coming in. So we're going to label both of these pulmonary veins. And then we can color them. So the pulmonary veins from both the left and the right join like right here. So it's a little tricky, but the blood sort of pops into this hole right here. So if you want to kind of give yourself that clue, and again it's hard because it's on the back side of the heart, but the vena cava coming from below and above the heart sort of pop in right there and there. So the blood comes from the backside into this chamber. All right, well those are just the veins, and you might notice we're only halfway through the blood vessels. So let's keep going. Number 2, we have arteries. And as you might remember, arteries go away from the heart. We've got 2 special arteries. Letter A, the aorta. Aorta has 2 vowels right in a row. It's a little tricky. The aorta takes blood to the body. It's the largest artery in your body. It has to carry the highest pressure blood because it's coming straight from the heart. It has to have enough force to get all the way down to your toes and back. And next, letter B, the pulmonary artery, again, hopefully you've got it by now, takes blood to the lungs. So here in our picture, if you can visualize the blood coming in here, down here, up and out, this now is where the blood can split to go right or left. And if you remember what is to the right of the heart, well, these are your lungs. So this is your pulmonary artery. This one over here is also the pulmonary artery because, again, it's the same thing. It just split onto both sides. This actually is still pulmonary artery down here. It looks like another chamber, but it's the beginning of the artery. And then up here, if you see the blood comes down and loops up underneath this and pops out the other side here, this is the aorta. And this is where blood can go maybe up to your arm and your brain and your other arm. And it can also loop back down, and it can kind of sneak down here, and it would pop out down here. If you want to add in the aorta, the blood would pop back down here as well. So we are going to color all that in. That's still the aorta. So let's color all of this. This is the pulmonary artery. And if you can see, it kind of pops under there and then pops out over here. And the aorta starts right here, comes under the pulmonary artery, and loops around. The aorta is the easiest to identify because it has this aortic arch. It has this big loop that's pretty easy to identify. And then this is also aorta, and we already colored the bottom. Those are all of the blood vessels. We're over halfway, and we are going to move on to the chambers of the heart. So I'm going to switch over to red and slide down here. Letter C. There are 4 chambers or rooms. If you've heard of the Chamber of Secrets, it's just the room of secrets. The chamber is a big room of the heart. Number 1. On the top, the atria collect blood coming into the heart. So if you can see this sort of dividing line here, this is the top chamber. And knowing that everything is backwards, this is the right atrium. Atrium is singular, atria is plural. Got to underline that. And that means this is the left atrium. And what happens is blood enters them from the vena cava. So as the blood comes in here, it flows down through these valves. And as the blood comes in here, it flows down through here. Now the bottom chambers, number 2, on the bottom, the ventricles push blood out of the heart. So here, on our picture, these are the ventricles down here. This is the right ventricle, and this is the left ventricle. And so as the blood comes in here, there's nowhere else to go. It has to loop back up and around. And this one, as it hits the bottom, it loops back up and around. So let's color those in. Here's the right atrium. Flowing into the right ventricle. And then on the other side, here's the left atrium. Flowing into the left ventricle. And last, we have 4 valves. Down here, we'll have to write kind of tiny. We're just going to list them and then label them. Letter D. There are 4 valves that keep the blood from going backwards. Just like in veins that have valves, the blood in the heart cannot go backward because then you would get oxygen-rich and oxygen-poor blood mixing. So we're going to have 4. Number 1, tricuspid valve. Tri meaning 3. There's 3 little flaps of tissue. Number 2, pulmonary valve. Number 3, bicuspid valve. Sometimes you might see it called the mitral valve. That's just another name for it. And then 4th, the aortic valve. So these 4 we are going to label. If you look at the picture of the heart, these flaps are the valves. I'm going to find my gray and start coloring over here. So as the blood comes in, here is the first valve. And again, it's just kind of two tissues that snap closed when blood tries to go backwards. This one is the tricuspid. And then here, as the blood goes toward the pulmonary artery, we have the pulmonary valve. I'm going to have to cross over to label this. Oops. And then on the left side of the heart, as the blood comes down, we have the bicuspid valve. This only has two flaps. And here we have the valve right before we get to the aorta, which logically is the aortic valve. And there you have it.